The death last year of Peter Best, photographer and fashion world personality, made headlines, one of the few women to succeed in a predominantly male field. On July the 7th, in the company of Natasha Marlow, a model she often employed and who was a friend, Peter Best attended a party at publisher Alain Griffin's flat. Miss Marlow had a good deal to drink, and at about 11 p.m. she was seriously under the influence of alcohol. Peter Best therefore said she would take her home with her, and the two women left. The following morning, reporting for work at Peter Best's studio, Fred Maple discovered Natasha Marlow pressed against the wall. Her eyes were blank and staring. When he approached her, she screamed and kept on screaming. Natasha Marlow seemed unaware of where she was or of what was going on about her. She even seemed unaware of the fact that Peter Best was dead. Today in Fulchester Crown Court, Natasha Marlow stands accused of the murder of Peter Best.
So Miss Marlow simply stood there against the wall, you say, staring?
Yes.
When you approached her, she began to scream?
Yes.
And went on screaming over and over again?
Like a crazy woman. It was, well, hairy, I don't mind telling you. It still gives me the shivers every time I think of it.
No doubt, Mr. Maple. What did you do?
Well, I phoned for the police. What else? There'd been murder done.
My lord, plainly, it could only have appeared to the witness that there'd been murder done.
Yes, quite correct, Mr. Lotterby. You telephoned the police because you wished to report a fatality. Isn't that what you wanted to say, Mr. Maple?
Yes, that's right, my lord.
Yes, well, then why not say it? We've got a lot to get through here, you know, so we mustn't waste time. Lack of precision only makes for longer hours in courts. Continue, Mr. Fry.
Lord? Now, the studio, what sort of condition was it in when you entered it that morning?
The studio?
Yes.
Oh, well, it looked like a tornado had hit it. Honest. Furniture overturned, stuff broken, half the lights had been knocked over and smashed. There was glass everywhere.
Had any photographic equipment been damaged?
Yes. Yes, there was a camera on the floor, a Polarflex 202. The case was cracked and the lens smashed. It looked as though it had been heaved round the room or trampled on it.
You simply want to tell us that the camera was broken, Mr. Maple. Quite. Did you inspect this camera?
I did.
Why?
Well, cameras are my business, like. Even with everything that seemed to have happened, I couldn't help wondering how it had got like it was.
Did the camera contain any film?
No.
Was any film of the type that could have been used in the camera anywhere in the studio?
Oh. Well, there was a spool all scrumpled up in one of the waste paper baskets, if that's what you mean, yes. It was ruined, though, nothing on it.
Had it been used?
Sorry?
Had any photographs been taken on the spool before it was exposed, Mr. Maple?
Well, 5 or 6 exposures had been made, but then the whole reel had been ripped out and scrumpled. It's a proper mess.
Now, you say that when you first caught sight of Miss Marlow, standing wide-eyed and staring against the wall, she was wearing a loose-fitting robe.
Yes.
Something casual, informal.
Sure.
Was she wearing anything else?
Come again?
Was the robe all she had on, Mr. Maple, do you know?
No, I don't know anything about that. She was wearing the kind of robe that models do wear in the studio, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Maple. Those are all the questions I have for you. However, my lord, before I hand over this witness to my learned friend, there is a procedural matter that I think ought to be gone into. I shall wish to introduce some photographs in evidence at a later stage, and these will require identification by Mr. Maple.
I take it then that you would like to have the identification at once, Mr. Fry?
Well, it would certainly save time, my lord.
Have you seen these photographs, Mr. Lotterby?
Yes, my lord, we've been permitted to see them.
Proceed, Mr. Fry.
I have here a wallet containing 6 photographs. Would you be kind enough to look at them and see if you can identify them for me, please?
These are some shots that Miss Best took of Miss Marlow one time. They were supposed to be for some sort of an art calendar, she reckoned. Well, only I figured they'd be a bit hot for that.
You developed and printed them, did you?
Yes.
How long ago did Miss Best take these photos?
About a year back now.
That would be some 3 months before she died.
Yeah, about that.
Thank you, Mr. Maple. I entered these photographs in evidence. They should be marked Exhibit 3.
Look, I didn't want any part of that. I just worked for Miss Best.
Thank you, Mr. Maple. That is all.
But I didn't have any choice, I'm telling you.
Mr. Maple, all we are interested in is your evidence.
It's true, my lord. I hated all that, especially when it was Miss Marlow.
You know Miss Marlow pretty well, do you, Mr. Maple?
Sorry?
Well, you seem to have a high regard for her.
I just know her, that's all. There was lots of models in and out the studio. Miss Marlow was... well, she was different.
Well, that spool of film you found in the waste paper basket, Mr. Maple, you couldn't, of course, tell how long it had been there, could you?
What?
Well, since there was nothing on the film by which you could identify it, you had no way of knowing that it hadn't been there for, say, a week?
Well, not a week, no, because the chars come in every second morning.
And the charge come in the morning of Peter Best's death?
Yes.
So the crumpled up film could have been there for at least 24 hours, couldn't it?
Yes. Except that old film is usually dumped in the bins out the back for the dustman.
You describe the studio as being in chaos when you entered it on the morning of July the 8th, as though a tornado had hit it?
Yes.
So somebody of a slightly tidier frame of mind must have disposed of that film into the waste paper basket, mustn't they? Everything else thrown about, smashed, but that film placed neatly aside.
Yes.
You say you found a camera broken, a Poliflex 202, I think you said it was. Was that the only camera in the studio that morning?
Oh, no, not all the others Miss Bess used were there. 6 of them. But in their proper places, up on a shelf.
Well, the Poliflex might simply become dislodged in the melee or whatever it was that occurred during that night. And fallen, subsequent to getting smashed, mightn't it?
Well, I don't...
mightn't it, Mr. Maple?
I suppose it might have.
So, in fact, all you can tell us about the studio that night was that it was in a terrible mess, isn't that right? There was nothing to indicate to you that anything, any kind of photographic session might have occurred during the small hours, as my learned friend is trying to suggest?
No, I never said nothing like that.
Now, when you saw Miss Marlow against the wall, you say she was wild-eyed and staring.
Yes.
She didn't recognize you then, you mean?
Well, she never spoke or anything. I tried to ask her, was she all right, but she didn't answer.
Just screamed and went on screaming?
Yes.
Would you say Miss Marlow would have recognized anybody that morning?
Lord, I object to that question.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Lotterby. The witness has a tendency to express conclusions as things stand, and I certainly don't expect you to foster it.
I apologize, my lord. Mr. Maple, you were Miss Best's photographic assistant for how long was it up to the time of her death?
3 years.
3 years. Now, my learned friend has introduced into evidence some nude photographs of Miss Marlow. Were any other nude photographs taken of her by Miss Best on other occasions?
No other sessions featuring Miss Marlow.
Did Miss Best, in fact, do a lot of nude photography?
Well, only as much as she had to. But everybody's got to do some these days. To pay the rent, my lord. It's dirty old men that keep freelance photographers in business, they say. Old goats, you know, past it, but...
No further questions, Mr. Maple.
You may stand down, Mr. Maple.
I call Alan Martin Stanislaus.
Dr. Martin Stanislaus, please.
I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Martin Stanislaus, MD, of High Combe, Chiverton Bridge, Chiverton.
That is so, yes.
Are you employed by the Home Office, Dr. Stanislaus?
Yes, I'm the deputy head of the Fulchester County Forensic Department.
In the course of your duties, did you on the morning of the 8th of July last go to the studio of Peter Best, a fashion photographer?
Yes, I did. Miss Best had died under suspicious circumstances, and I was required to establish the cause of death. Also, another young woman was discovered near the body in what was represented to me as a state of shock, and it was necessary for me to make some judgment as her condition. And then I had to consider the physical evidence, such aspects of it as might be relevant to an inquiry.
Did you in fact establish the cause of death?
Yes, I did, after a post-mortem. Miss Best had died of suffocation.
Suffocation?
Yes, she was heavily bruised about the face and body. But these injuries proved only superficial. However, there was also a sheet thrust or rammed into her mouth. This extended some 8 inches down the throat, distending the trachea, and was unquestionably the cause of death.
And the young woman who was represented to you as being in a state of shock, do you see her in the court today?
I do. It is the accused, Natasha Marlow.
Did you examine Natasha Marlow, Doctor, when you arrived at the studio?
Yes, I did.
And what conclusion did you come to about her condition?
Well, it wasn't easy to begin with. Miss Marlow was in a most curious, removed state, almost trance-like. She could understand questions when I put them to her, but she had difficulty in formulating the answers. It really took me some little while to discover that the young lady was heavily under the influence of lysergic acid diethylamide.
I wonder if you'd repeat that, Doctor, for the benefit of the jury.
Yes. Miss Natasha Marlow was under the influence of lysergic acid diethylamide, or what's sometimes known simply as acid, L.S.D.
L.S.D. Natasha Marlow was under the influence of L.S.D, you say?
Yes, markedly so.
And how was this apparent to you?
Well, I had noticed certain physical peculiarities. For instance, under examination, Miss Marlow displayed a much stronger knee jerk than is normal. That's a characteristic of LSD sufferers, my lord. Also, there were the dilated pupils of the eyes, grossly so. This is another unmistakable sign.
Did you decide that Miss Marlow was under the influence of LSD purely on the basis of these physical indications, Doctor?
No. I'd found the shells of certain capsules in the bedroom of the studio, which first created a suspicion in my mind. Now, later, when I analyzed these, I discovered that they did indeed contain LSD. And then, when I asked Miss Marlow had she taken anything, she admitted, yes, she had been using LSD.
How long after you examined Miss Marlow was she able to speak cogently, Doctor?
Oh, about 20 minutes. The drowse state usually indicates that the drug is wearing off. However, there's no real reason why a person under the influence of LSD shouldn't speak to one, communicate. LSD doesn't dull awareness of the world around, rather it increases it. It's what's sometimes known as a mind-expanding drug.
But earlier, when Mr. Maple, Miss Best's assistant, had approached her, she apparently resisted all his attempts at communication.
Yes, well, she may just at that juncture have been experiencing freakout, particularly nasty side effect of LSD. You see, LSD trips, as they're known, aren't always pleasant experiences, and nor can the subject ever predict whether he's going to move into a golden dream or terrifying nightmare. When one freaks out, it's a journey into hell.
Into hell?
Yes.
Well, perhaps before we go any further, Doctor, you better outline for us the effects of LSD in general.
Yeah, one moment, please. Dr. Stanislaus, am I to understand that you are an expert in the field of drug addiction?
Not in the field as a whole, my lord, but it just so happens that my police work over the past few years has required me to make a full study of the hallucinogenic drugs.
Hallucinogenic, yes. Perhaps you better explain that for the benefit of the jury.
Yes. Quite simply, the hallucinogenic drugs are those which bring about hallucinations, different states of mind. Now, apart from LSD, the group also includes drugs like psilocybin, mescaline, peyote, and one or two other less common types. Now, these drugs produce states ranging from mild euphoria to panic fantasy.
Please continue, Mr. Pratt.
What is the main general effect of LSD on the person who takes it, Doctor?
Well, in the most general sense, LSD may be said to inhibit or disinhibit, rather, or release control over acquired patterns of thought or behavior. It's an anti-intellectual drug in that it releases feeling processes rather than rational ones. Reason gives way to dream, if you understand me. Knowledge to sensory appreciation.
And what about behavior?
I'm sorry.
Does taking LSD affect acquired behavior patterns in the same way, Doctor?
You mean, would a person commit acts under the influence of LSD that he wouldn't commit in his everyday state?
Yes.
Well, not enough is known about this. In one sense, the answer to your question is no. There is no evidence that LSD in itself alters behavior patterns. It's a drug that's much more concerned with being than with doing. But on the other hand, insofar as it is a disinhibiting drug, it does have a liberating effect, shall we say, at a subconscious level. For example, a person that was going to rob a bank anyway might be more likely to actually do so under the influence of L.S.D. Now, there are some very stupid young people in the United States who, faced with ordeals such as end-of-term exams, have been known to experiment with L.S.D. as a source of Dutch courage.
You regard people who take L.S.D. as foolish, then, Doctor?
Well, unless it's done under the strictest of medical supervision, yes. I mean, the results are simply unpredictable. For instance, there was another young man in California who went for a drive in his sports car after taking LSD. Now, he very quickly formed the impression that he could control the traffic lights. He could actually make them turn green when he wanted to. Well, of course, it wasn't long before he caused an accident, seriously injuring himself and two other people.
Now, I want to be quite clear about this, Doctor. You say that LSD increases awareness of the world about.
That is so, yes,
You now seem to be saying that the hallucinations produced are at variance with the observed facts.
Well, it can be like that on occasions, yes, my lord. In certain persons, the drug seems to impose new forms on reality. Now, in such cases, they simply must find a response to new, completely illusory perceptions. It's an imperative.
Well, then LSD does alter established behavior patterns. That's the only practical way of putting it.
Well, I still prefer to say it merely removes the censors the normal mind imposes on behavior, my lord. Desired but previously sublimated action suddenly becomes possible.
You mean like throwing bricks through the window of the university administration block to show one's contempt for authority, for instance?
Yes, if you like.
Murdering a person one secretly hates?
Oh, not enough is known about that.
Now, what sort of LSD dose is required to produce the effects you've required, Doctor?
Oh, well, remarkably small amounts, as little as 50 micrograms.
And what dosage had Miss Marlow taken at the time you examined her? Could you tell?
No. No, unfortunately, it's impossible to tell exactly how much LSD a person under the influence might have suffered. The drug is remarkably quickly absorbed into the system, and the effects remain long after all traces have disappeared. However, I should have said Miss Marlow had taken considerably more than 50 micrograms.
Why?
Well, a small dose will produce an effect lasting up to 4 hours. Quite a large dose, up to 8 hours or even beyond. Now, on her own admission, Miss Marlow had been in an LSD-induced state for at least 10 hours.
She could be precise about that.
Oh, yes. Memory isn't impaired by LSD. She confessed to me that she remembered first having taken a dose at about 10 o'clock at a party she'd been attending the night before.
First having taken a dose?
Yes, later she took another. Or rather, she told me that she had taken a large red pill described to her as super new acid from the States.
This would be more LSD, would it, or something else?
Well, it's hard to say. The colour is a little puzzling. However, a large red pill would indicate to me what is sometimes known as a mixed pill. That is LSD with something added, possibly amphetamines.
Amphetamines?
Yes, my lord.
Amphetamines act as a stimulant, don't they?
That is so, yes, my lord.
Well, then what on earth is the point of taking a stimulant along with a drug which is meant at its best to produce dreamlike hallucinations?
Well, to speed the process up, my lord, to make the breakthrough into the dream world more rapid and urgent.
Doctor, did Miss Marlow tell you anything else about the doses that she'd taken the night of Peter Best's death?
Well, she admitted to me that she'd been drinking a good deal, some wine and about half a bottle of vodka.
Really? And what exact effect did this cocktail of drugs have on her behaviour? Was she able to tell you anything about that?
Oh, yes. She was remarkably clear on that subject, in fact. I took some notes at the time. I should like to refer to them here, if I may.
Yes, by all means.
As nearly as I can reproduce them, these were Miss Marlow's own words. It started in my head, and as it went down my body, I just sort of left. There was no more of me. It finally completely engulfed me. Then I was going out into space. I was actually up in space, in blackness. But I started to fall. I hung on desperately, but I couldn't help falling. Then they were grabbing at me. I didn't know what, but out of the blackness, out of the walls. Every time they touched me, it was like a giant slug. The room was full of giant slugs. They were covering me. I had to choke them off or be killed. I was fighting for my life. I knew if I could stop them breathing, they couldn't hurt me anymore. So I started to choke them, one after another. My hands squashed into them. I killed them. So that I could live, the slugs died. And I was free again.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, the physical evidence of the studio itself. We've heard that furniture was overturned and equipment was broken, but did you take away certain objects for analysis?
Yes, one in particular. You see, I was impressed by the fact that although Miss Best was heavily bruised about the head and body, the skin was nowhere broken. Now, among the debris, I found a length of rubber hosing, very heavy, possibly used to shield some electrical connection. Now, under analysis, I discovered that this had traces of Miss Best's hair on it, and also Miss Marlow's fingerprints. This is an agreed object, my lord. Exhibit 1.
Yes, Mr. Bragge.
A final question for you, Doctor. When you examined Miss Marlow, what was she wearing?
Kind of dressing gown, as I remember it, yes.
Did she have anything else on underneath?
Yes, a pair of briefs.
Only the briefs? No brassiere? Nothing else?
No, only the briefs.
Thank you, Doctor. That's all.
Dr. Stanislas, you tell us Peter Best died of suffocation, the result of a sheet thrust or rammed some 8 inches down her throat.
Yes, that is so.
Do you mean here to imply thrust or rammed by some person other than Miss Best herself?
Well, what?
It was a clear enough question, Doctor. Miss Best or some other party?
Well, obviously some other party, I should have thought. The grossly distended
Should
fakir.
have thought, or can demonstrate, Doctor.
I'm sorry,
Is there anything in the medical evidence to establish beyond all doubt that some other party must have rammed that sheet down Miss Best's throat and that she could not have done it herself?
Well, no, but the likelihood
Yes or
is
no,
that...
please, Doctor?
Well, plainly no, but...
Thank you.
It's quite at variance with the laws of probability,
Thank you, Doctor. Now, you tell us further that you don't know precisely how much L.S.D. Natasha Marlow had taken that night, and that in fact it's almost impossible to establish the exact amount a person may have ingested.
That is so.
But isn't there a maximum a human being might take and survive?
Well, we don't know about that. There's never been a death recorded from LSD, if that's what you mean.
We do seem to have a remarkable quantity of LSD floating about in this case, Doctor. There's the LSD that Natasha Marlow took at the party. Then there's this large red pill which she took later. And then there's those 2 capsules, the shells of which you found in the studio bedroom. Now, what about them?
Yes, the capsules.
Yes, Doctor, we must put them into the overall arithmetic too, mustn't we? It's beginning to look as though Miss Marlow took such a massive dose of LSD as to be fortunate ever to emerge into reality, doesn't it?
Well, that doesn't necessarily follow.
You really believe she took as much, Doctor? Seriously? Or isn't it more probable that she had a travelling companion on her journey into the unknown? Peter Best, who also had a bad trip, perhaps. A far worse one than Natasha Marlow, since it led to her own death.
Today, the trial of Natasha Marlow, fashion model accused of the murder of Peter Best, the photographer, continues with evidence from Fulchester's leading forensic doctor. Mr. Charles Lotterby, defending Miss Marlow, has put it to Dr. Stanislas that Peter Best may also have been on an LSD trip.
Exhibit 2, Dr. Stanislas, the shells of the capsules you found in the studio bedroom and later certified to have contained LSD. Now, is it possible to say what quantity of the drug each contained?
My lord, I protest that this line of questioning is irrelevant. It can only be pure speculation to ask whether or not Peter Best took LSD the night she died.
Yes, that may be, Mr. Fry, that may be, but the exact quantity of the drugs that Miss Marlow took would seem to be of some moment. Now, Miss Marlow told you, Doctor, that she only took the normal dosage at the party and then the red pill later.
That is so, yes, my lord.
Would that seem to you to be accurate? Might she not actually have taken more, the entire contents of these capsules, perhaps, and then either forgotten or concealed the fact?
Well, as counsel for the defence has pointed out, my lord, this would have constituted a massive dose. I may be at fault here. It's true, I hadn't considered the arithmetic of the matter, but if Miss Best had taken the contents of those 2 capsules, plus the other dosages she confesses to, then it's certainly very hard to see how she could have been speaking coherently by the time I examined her. Each of those capsules contains 600 micrograms.
600, and an average dosage, I think you told us, is 50 micrograms?
Yes, my lord.
So that's more than 20 times as much. Massive indeed.
Dr. Stanislaus, is there any recorded case of an LSD subject laying violent hands, let alone murderous hands, on a fellow human being?
Yes, New York State in 1968.
Oh, I should, of course, have specified any normal LSD subject. If you're quoting the case history, I think you are. The subject there was a homicidal paranoid who'd been given the drug under medical supervision, isn't that so?
Yes. There is no recorded case of a normal LSD subject laying violent or murderous hands on a fellow human being.
On the other hand, among normal LSD subjects, isn't there a fairly consistent history of self-injury? Especially when the subject has had a bad trip.
Now, the number of suicides with LSD as a direct cause must be extremely small. In most attested cases, it's been clearly shown that the subject had a history of attempted suicides anyway.
But not in all cases, Doctor.
I repeat, in by far the majority.
Not in all cases, Doctor.
No, not in all.
My lord, no doubt you will agree that it is highly important for us to know whether or not Peter Best took LSD on the night of her death.
Is there any way of establishing such a possibility at this late date, Doctor?
No, my lord. This would hardly have been possible even at the time of the post-mortem. As I've explained to the court, the drug is remarkably quickly absorbed into the system.
Well, then it seems that we shall never know for certain, Mr. Lotterby.
With respect, my lord, surely that means we may invoke the presumptive evidence if we wish. If there is no evidence to be introduced to show that anyone else was in the studio that night, and if Miss Marlow couldn't have taken the LSD capsules, then surely we may infer that Miss Best did.
My lord, I object to this.
Do you, in fact, intend to show that there was somebody else in the studio that night, Mr. Fry?
No, my lord, I have no evidence like that.
Well, then I think we must agree that Mr. Lotterby has established a likelihood. And the jury will note that there is now a possibility that Peter Best, too, took LSD on the night of her death.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, you find a length of rubber hosing in Peter Best's studio, Exhibit 1 over there, bearing traces of the dead woman's hair and the fingerprints of the accused.
That is so, yes.
In your view, could the injuries to Peter Best's head and body have been caused by blows from that length of hosing?
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. That's all.
You may stand down, Dr. Stanislaus.
I call Alan Griffin.
Call Alan Griffin.
What is your religion?
Roman Catholic.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Griffin... Carry on, Mr. Fry.
Not. You are Alan Griffin of the Penthouse, Brands Court, Catherton Street, Fulchester.
That's correct.
What is your profession, please?
I'm a publisher.
What exactly do you publish?
Various photo magazines. Girly Girl, Gander, Peekaboo, and Wink. Also certain children's material.
Children's material?
Oh, yes, my lord. We had a big success last year with a Tiny Tot Sun book. Also, our Read with Sister series is very popular in the convent schools.
On the 7th of July last, did you give a party at your flat?
At my penthouse, yes. To celebrate my firm's birthday. 5 years.
Was the accused in this case, Natasha Marlow, at that party?
She was.
And did she come alone, or was she in company?
She came and left with Peta Best, the photographer, which surprised me, really, since I'd naturally expected Natasha to show up with her boyfriend, Bill Archdeacon, the writer. They'd been a twosome for years. But there you are. Nothing's ever sure in this life except taxes. It split up.
Did this evidence come to you from Miss Marlow herself at the party?
Mm-hmm. Not once, but several times. Through boozy tears with mascara right down to the cleavage. She really laid into the vodka that night. Completely blotto by 10 p.m., which is a bit heavy even when you're in mourning.
I have here some photographs, Mr. Griffin, which I would like you to identify for us if you can. Could the witness be shown Exhibit 3, please?
Yeah? These are some pictures of Natasha Marlow that I bought from Peta Best for a center spread in the August issue of Gander magazine. But unfortunately, when we made up the dummy in early July, we found that 2 key shots weren't reproducing properly and would have to be done again.
And this was Peta Best's business, wasn't it?
The photographic studio involved takes full responsibility in cases like that. Under contract, pictures have to be in mint condition.
You mean you were requiring Peta Best to reshoot 2 of these poses?
Yes.
Of Natasha Marlow?
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, Peta was supposed to have the photographs at my office by the morning of July 6th. Instead, she telephoned and asked if she could have some more time, because she was having difficulty persuading the model to get into the mood again.
And what did you reply to that?
I simply said, "Sweetheart, my absolute deadline is July 8th. It's not my problem."
Had the shots been in fact provided by the time of your party on July the 7th?
No. Even then we were living under a question mark.
Now, you say that by 10 o'clock in the evening of the party, Natasha Marlow was recognizably drunk.
Yes.
Did this worry you?
No. Booze never worries me. Not really. Just that particular evening, there happened to be a couple of important American agency people at the party. So when Natasha started condensing into her vodka, I went over to her and I said, "Sweetheart, it's been a long, hard day for all of us. Why don't you let me call you a taxi?"
To which she answered?
No. Not to mince words. She said she had a better idea, in fact, to go on a nice, relaxing trip to outer space or thereabouts. And she scrabbled in her bag, whipped out a pill, and popped it.
Popped it?
A term implying took or consumed, my lord, in quite common use these days.
Indeed.
Yes, my lord.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
So Miss Marlow popped a pill, Mr. Griffin, and what did you do then?
I shoved her straight into her bedroom, slamming the door behind us. I certainly wasn't taking any chances on that kind of a scene. "Natasha, baby," I said, "let's get something quite straight. Are there any more at home like that?" She scrabbled in her bag again and this time whipped out the biggest red pill I'd ever seen. "For after," she said, "the greatest super new acid from the States."
The exact words here are very important, Mr. Griffin. For afterwards, the greatest super new acid from the States.
Yes?
I see. And then what happened?
Well, then she put the red pill back in her bag, the door opened, and Peta Best came in. She must have heard the flurry outside. "Peta," I said, "no wonder you can't get any cooperation out of this kid. She's an acid head, did you know?" Peta said, "Don't you worry, I can handle her. You'll have your retakes by the morning."
By the morning. You're quite sure of those words, are you?
Oh, I'm quite sure. And then Natasha, well, she went berserk. She hurled herself at Peta, screaming, "I won't do those shots. I won't do them. I'll kill you before I do."
And did Miss Best reply to this attack?
Oh, yeah. She grabbed Natasha, shoved her against a wall, and held her there. "You'll do the shots," she said. "You've got no choice. You owe me too much."
And then, Mr. Griffin?
Well, after that, Natasha seemed to calm down. Peter helped her clean up her face, and the two of them went outside again. Then about 11, Peta came to find me. She said Natasha was too far gone to cope with anymore, and she was taking her home with her. The acid taking effect, I guess.
So Peta Best and Natasha Marlow left together sometime after 11 o'clock?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin, that's all.
Yeah.
Mr. Griffin, how well would you say you know Miss Marlow?
How well?
Yes.
Not very well at all. Our paths have crossed once or twice, that's about it.
You don't regard her as a friend, then?
No, it was her ex-boyfriend, Bill Archdeacon, that I knew rather better. In fact, it was only through him I ever knew Natasha.
At the time of your party, you didn't feel in any sense responsible for Miss Marlow.
Responsible?
Well, you could see how upset she was over her broken love affair, and you knew, too, she didn't want to do the nude poses you'd asked for.
That had nothing to do with me. It was Peta Best's business.
You didn't even feel you ought to ask yourself why she didn't want to do the nude poses?
If you start worrying about things like that, you go crazy. I mean, models are all alike. The ones who make the biggest fuss about stripping are the ones who won't stop taking off their clothes in the end. They enjoy it. All women do.
Mr. Griffin, on the night of your party, didn't you appreciate that Miss Marlow was in a critical emotional state?
How was that?
Drinking too much and in tears, she popped a pill, as you put it, and then you saw she had another larger pill in her bag. Now, why didn't you do something about that?
Do what, brother?
Well, I leave that to your imagination. Didn't you care that an unhappy and near hysterical girl was imbibing both alcohol and L.S.D. in large and random proportions?
All my life I've had 3 rules. Never tell the truth to a chick, never admit a tax debt, and if someone shows you the drug scene, brother, make like you've used a white stick from birth.
Mr. Griffin, will you kindly stop addressing counsel for the defence as brother? That is not acceptable language in court. If you use it again, or indeed any equally familiar mode of address, I shall consider you in contempt and fine you accordingly. I advise you to be very careful. Continue, Mr. Lotterby.
Thank you, my lord. Mr. Griffin, would you have said Peta Best was considerably stronger than Miss Marlow?
Stronger?
Physically. You testified that in the bedroom she shoved Miss Marlow back against the wall and held her there. Now, was that accomplished with ease, difficulty?
With the greatest of ease. Peta was a knockout in the clinches. Could have gone in for female wrestling if she wanted to. I should know. I could hardly hold her down myself the day she tried to cut her wrist in my office.
What was that you said, Mr. Griffin?
The day Peta tried to slash her wrists. In my office on Duke Street about 2 years ago now. Oh, she was quite good at that, Peta. There'd been several attempts, I'd heard. An hysteric. Couldn't help making a scene, brother. Mr. Lotterby, sir.
Now, Mr. Griffin, I think you better tell us about the time Peta Best tried to kill herself in your office.
Well, she came around with some pictures she had for me, that was all. She looked pretty grim. I asked her, was something the matter? She said yes, she just had a terrible fight with, I forget his name, Hungarian actor she'd taken up with. Peta was a bit of a disaster area where men were concerned. Anyway, since I didn't want a neurosis all over my carpet, I went out to the secretary to get some aspirin. And while I was out, she grabbed up a letter opener.
A letter opener?
A paper opener.
A paper knife?
A paper knife, and had a go at her wrists. Lord knows why she chose my office. Anyway, when I came back into the office, she was raging about the place, hysterical, bleeding all over, and I practically had to sit on her chest to calm her down again.
So, you in fact saved her life then?
I made with the antiseptic and the bandages, and a good stiff drink.
No ambulance?
Oh, I hardly think that was necessary.
So, Peta Best demonstrated suicidal tendencies, and on both that occasion and the night of your party, considerable physical strength.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Griffin, you say that when Peta Best tried to slash her wrists in your office that day, she used a paper knife.
Yes?
What was it made of? Metal or plastic?
Metal.
But blunted, surely, as these things always are. Hardly the most efficient instrument for a suicide.
Well, there was blood all over the place, if that's what you're talking about.
Though not enough to persuade you to call an ambulance.
All right, so I didn't want to get into trouble. These things can rebound on you.
Peta Best survived well enough, anyway.
Yeah.
So on balance, rather than being an attempted suicide, wasn't this more an attempt to draw attention to her distress over a broken love affair?
Ah, no, but there'd been other occasions.
We don't know about other occasions, Mr. Griffin, just this one.
Well, I suppose you'd have to argue that out.
Indeed you would, Mr. Griffin. Indeed you would. That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
I see. Very well, Mr. Griffin, you may stand down.
For my first witness, I call the defendant, Natasha Marlow.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Natasha Marlow, and you live at 5 Darlington Road, Milbury, Fulchester.
Yes.
Miss Marlow, it has been testified that on the night of July the 7th you were drinking heavily and that you also took 2 dosages of drugs, some L.S.D. at Alan Griffin's penthouse and then a large red pill at the studio. Is all that correct?
Yes.
Could you speak a little louder, please, Miss Marlow? And face the jury when you're answering my questions. It's they who must hear your replies.
Yes. Yes, I took the acid at Alan's place and then again at Peter's. Or I thought that red pill was just acid.
It's also been testified that you were required to pose for some retakes of nude photographs, that you refused, and that when the photographer Peter Best tried to insist, you shouted at her, "I won't do those shots, I won't, I'll kill you before I do." Now, is that also correct?
Or I think I said something like that. Yes, I'm not sure of the exact words. I mean, I didn't mean it, not at all. Everything's a bit confused, really.
What clear memories do you have about that night?
Well, I remember about the L.S.D. I remember that perfectly. But other things...
Well, before we talk about that night, can you tell us why you objected to doing the retakes of the nude photographs?
Why?
Well, it seems a little unreasonable of you. You'd already done the session. It was only a question of posing again for 1 or 2 pictures that hadn't been quite successful. Wasn't that right?
Well, it wasn't till after I'd done the session that I saw what the pictures were like.
They didn't please you?
I thought they were awful, dirty.
Had you ever done nude photographs before, Miss Marlow?
No, this was the first time. I only did them because Peter said I should.
Said you should?
He said it would be good for my career. And it was crazy, really. I didn't want to make a success as a model, especially that sort.
But modelling is your profession, isn't it?
No. Oh, no. No, I'm really an actress. I only do that sort of work to pay the rent.
An actress?
Yeah. I trained at the Netta Parsons Drama School, 3 terms to take the diploma. I had 1 or 2 little jobs in television, you know, little bits. But work's very hard to come by.
Now, about the L.S.D., have you been taking that for long?
On and off for about 2 years.
Why, Miss Marlow?
Why?
Didn't it ever occur to you it was rather a silly thing to be doing?
Well, I never worried about getting caught, if that's what you mean. No, it helped so much, you see. It helped with problems. I always had good trips, and when that happens, it's marvellous. You're so happy. You see things clearly. But then Bill said it was bad to get dependent on drugs, so I started to...
Miss Marlow?
Bill Archdeacon, my boyfriend. He said I was becoming habituated and I ought to do something about it. So in the end, I went to a clinic.
Oh, which clinic was that, Miss Marlow?
St. John of the Cross Clinic at Fulchester South Hospital.
How does it happen that on the night of July the 7th, we find you taking an L.S.D. dose followed by some kind of mixed pill?
Well, I hadn't managed to come off the drug completely. I still took trips. Anyway, the night of Alan's party, well, that was to do with Bill, really, you see. The split-up had just happened and I was properly depressed about it. So I suddenly thought I needed acid.
Why did you and Bill Archdeacon split up?
He got to think I was stupid.
Stupid?
Yeah. Well, he wrote books and scripts and things, and he just got to think that I was half-witted. He said I was silly to go on making out I was an actress when I never got any work. And he said I was especially silly to let myself fall into the clutches of people like Peter Best.
Fall into the clutches? What did he mean by that?
Yeah. Well, I owed Peter money.
A lot?
Yeah, quite a bit. She had advanced me against work I might do for her one day. I don't think she meant to do any more than just help me, but it built up. In the end, well, that's how the nude session came about. I just had to agree to it in order to work off some of the money.
Against your better judgment?
I should say. That sort of thing gives me the creeps, really.
Why?
Don't know, just does. Don't like to think of the people looking at me that way, I suppose. Never have.
Now, my next question is very important, Miss Marlow. Did you hate Peta Best for the obvious hold she had over you?
Hate her?
Yes.
No, Peta was all right, really. It was Bill going off like that. That hurt me.
To come back to the night of Peta Best's death, Miss Marlow, you went back to the studio with Miss Best after Alan Griffin's party, is that right?
Yeah. I was high on drink and acid, both. I probably wouldn't have made it to my own place. So she said, come to the studio. But as soon as we got in the door, she said, what about those retakes? Let's do them now.
This took you by surprise, did it?
Yes.
So what did you reply?
I don't know exactly. My head was going round. But I know I told her I wasn't doing any nude shots. Not then nor ever again.
And what happened next, Miss Marlow?
I don't know. This is where it starts getting confused. I suddenly heard Peter's voice saying, well, go on, take it. And I looked down and saw the red pill in the palm of my hand. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor and Peta was opposite me. And Peta had some capsules that she was breaking open, letting the powder fall into a drink. Oh, this surprised me because I never knew her to take anything. So I took the red pill.
And then?
Peta was thrashing about on the floor. There were bangs and crashes. She'd pulled a sheet off the studio couch and was dragging it around with her. I said, stop it, Peta, you're in danger. That seemed to me a funny thing to say. But all of a sudden I could see why I said it. Coming across the studio.
Yes, Miss Marlow?
There were the slugs. Just the way I told it to the doctor next morning. Dozens of slugs. Huge, filthy things. You don't know what it was like. It was real. Real. I didn't think I'm having a trip. Nothing like that. I just knew there were these slugs coming towards me. They made a queer kind of sound. A gasping sound. I couldn't move. But I had to fight them. I just had to make sure I lived. By killing them.
The case of the Queen versus Marlow will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. The trial of Natasha Marlow, fashion model accused of killing Peta Best, the photographer, today enters its final stages. Evidence given by Dr. Martin Stanislaus, forensic expert, indicates that Miss Best died of suffocation, a sheet rammed down her throat. Alan Griffin, Girly magazine publisher, has testified that at a party he gave the night before Miss Best's death, Natasha Marlow was upset about some nude poses she was supposed to do for one of his journals, and, under the influence of both alcohol and L.S.D, threatened to kill Miss Best.
As I understand it, Miss Marlow, you say that on the night in question you'd taken drugs and did not have a normal understanding of what was going on.
I was on a trip, yeah.
You explained this trip by saying that you'd taken a profusion of drugs. Now, when you were being questioned by your counsel just now, you knew that if it could be established that you were out of your senses at all material times, like a sleepwalker, you could not be convicted of murder. You knew that, didn't you?
I suppose I did, yes.
I expect somebody told you about it. And yet you remember just enough to suggest that Peta Best killed herself. Come now, Miss Marlow, you remember it all, don't you? So why don't you tell it?
But I don't. Not really, only about the bad trip.
But that really won't do, Miss Marlow, because you've just now told us that when the two of you got back to the studio that night, Peta Best asked you again to do the nude shots. Peta Best took L.S.D out of the capsules. Peta Best thrashed about on the floor, dragging a sheet behind her. In other words, in a period of supposed total amnesia, you remember just enough.
I don't know what you mean.
I mean that your memories tie up all the loose ends far too neatly, Miss Marlow.
That's the way it was.
Now, you tell us that when Peta Best asked you again to do the nude shots, you refused. Not then or ever again.
Well, yes, I'd made up my mind.
Why then did you take off most of your clothing and change into a robe? A robe and a pair of briefs is all you were found to be wearing the next morning, Miss Marlow. Why was that?
I don't know. Maybe it was to feel better for the L.S.D trip. I can't answer the question, really.
Can't you? Do you really expect this court to believe that Peta Best could have pushed a sheet 8 inches down her own throat and caused her own death?
Well, I didn't do it. I know I didn't.
How do you know you didn't if you remember so little? It wasn't really a bad L.S.D trip you were experiencing that evening, was it, Miss Marlow? It was an attack of wild hatred against the woman who had a hold over you.
That's a lie!
Your fingerprints were found on that piece of rubber hosing, Exhibit 1 over there, which also contained fragments of Peta Best's hair and could have been used to cause her injuries. How do you explain that?
I can't.
Well, here's what fits the facts, Miss Marlow. The facts of the testimony so far. Peta Best did take L.S.D that night. Perhaps to keep you company, perhaps to coax you into doing the nude shots after all. You took off your clothes, even began to pose. But then something happened. Perhaps the effect of the drugs you'd taken at the party began to wear off. Perhaps something else happened that you don't care to tell us about. And you attacked Peta Best. All your feeling against her coming out. Beating her wildly with that length of rubber hose.
It's all lies!
And then you suffocated her, pushing the sheet down her mouth as she lay half-dazed on the floor. Oh, it was a struggle, inasmuch as she was a stronger woman than you. Equipment got broken, a camera was damaged, and you deliberately destroyed the film, didn't you? You tore it out, spoiling its images before setting it apparently innocently aside in the waste paper.
No!
Because that film was evidence above all else of Peta Best's hold over you.
No! It isn't true! You can't say things like that. It isn't true. None of it.
And it was then that you took the big red pill, Miss Marlow, to hide your guilt in a trip. This big red pill, where did you get it?
Get it?
Yes.
Usual source. Pushers.
You were very upset when you had a rift with your boyfriend, weren't you? Did this have anything to do with Peta Best?
Bill didn't think Peta... He wanted me to stop working for her altogether.
So indirectly, Peta Best broke up a relationship that meant more to you than anything else in the world. And that was one more reason for your hating her, wasn't it?
No. I never hated Peta. It was crazy what Bill asked. He didn't understand. Nobody does. Peta Best was the only person who gave me any kind of work, you see? So I had to stick to her. Otherwise, I'd never get to be an actress.
Thank you, Miss Marlow. No further questions, but not...
May the defendant now be excused, my lord.
Yes, of course, Mr. Lotterby. We will return to the dock, Miss Marlow.
I call Sister Joanna Forbush.
Sister Joanna Forbush, please.
What is your religion?
Roman Catholic.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Sister Joanna Forbush, M.B. of the Medical Missionaries of St. Anne?
I am.
Are you also a graduate in social science, and do you give voluntary service at the St. John of the Cross Clinic for Drug Addiction at Fulchester South Hospital?
All that is correct.
Is the clinic a religious foundation, Sister?
Well, it was the brainchild of one of the members of my order, if that's what you mean. But many of the people who work with us have no religious affiliations.
I see. Do you know the defendant in this case, Natasha Marlow?
Yes. Natasha came to me last year for a 3-month period with an L.S.D. habituation problem. I suppose I saw her 5 or 6 times.
Sister, today Miss Marlow is charged with murder. And it's been testified that on the night when the events occurred which led to her arrest, she was heavily under the influence of L.S.D. Now, can you tell the court what progress she'd made during her period of treatment with you?
Well, habituation is a special sort of problem. It isn't the same thing as addiction. You can't, in fact, become truly addicted to L.S.D., so the subject never feels himself in the same critical state of dependence as the addict does. Natasha simply wanted to come off the drug, and really did very well at first. But there were relapses.
Which is quite usual, is it?
Oh, yes.
If, as you say, you can't become truly addicted to L.S.D., what's the principal danger of it as a drug?
Well, mainly that it's no respecter of persons. It creates a world of illusion, and some people find they come to crave that just as powerfully as an addict craves heroin, shall we say. This is ultimately disabling. Some personalities ought never to be let near LSD.
What personality types would they be, Sister?
Oh, schizoids, paranoids, the emotionally disturbed, generally.
Would that include, say, attempted suicides?
Well, I should think so. Such persons probably constitute the highest risk group of all, in fact. They show a tendency towards bad trips, and self-injury is a fairly consistent feature of that.
Did you observe any signs of emotional disturbance in Natasha Marlow during the time she was attending the clinic?
No, not in the clinical sense anyway. I thought Natasha was emotionally immature, but basically stable. She turned to LSD because of various insecurities, and I wanted most earnestly to give it up again. Her main motive seemed to be to please her boyfriend, and I found that encouraging. It was an outgoing thing to do, and it even seemed to me Natasha was wanting to form a generous, perhaps permanent relationship.
Now, did Miss Marlow ever mention to you the photographer, Peter Best?
Yes, she did, on several occasions.
How did she speak of her exactly? Was she afraid of her? Did she dislike her?
Oh, no. No, in the main, she seemed concerned to stress how grateful she was to her.
How grateful she was to her?
Yes. Natasha very earnestly desired to make a career in the entertainment industry, you see, and she thought the modelling work she was doing for Peter Best was helping towards this.
Did Miss Marlow tell you of any difficulties that occurred with Miss Best?
Well, there was something about some nude poses Natasha felt she'd been more or less compelled to do, yes. I simply told her she mustn't allow herself to be used.
But did Miss Marlow appear to hate Miss Best for having made her do something she didn't want to?
Why, no, she seemed to understand Miss Best's motives rather too well for my liking. She said photographers had to do that sort of thing now and again, and since she was a model, she expected she should cooperate willingly. I disagreed. Later, when a rift with her boyfriend occurred, Natasha came to see me in deep depression. I tried to encourage her to look at what was positive in her life, and it was then she said, "There's always Peter Best, I suppose. Peter is my only friend now."
There's always Peter Best. Peter is my only friend now. She didn't then in any sense appear to blame Miss Best for the split up with her boyfriend?
No, never once.
Nor, as you say, give any signs of hating her. Thank you, Sister. Oh, would you remain there, please?
Sister Porbush, it's been established that on the night Peter Best died, Natasha Marlow took a normal LSD pill, and that later she took another large red pill, the contents of which are doubtful.
I see, yes.
This is probably what you now know as a mixed pill. At the clinic, do you not warn people against the dangers of such cocktails?
We certainly make people aware of their existence, yes.
Did you make Natasha Marlow so aware?
I imagine so.
So she was behaving irresponsibly, wasn't she, when she took the large red pill?
Natasha was deeply upset over the ending of her love affair, over many things.
Yes, of course, Sister. Now, to come to what she apparently said to you about the nude poses, that photographers were required to do this sort of thing from time to time, and that since she was a model... Sister Forbush, is there something you haven't told us about Peter Best and Natasha Marlow? There isn't there? I take it I do not have to remind a woman of your convictions that she is speaking under oath.
Well, that's nonsense. I've told the truth throughout. I've answered all questions openly.
All the questions you've been asked, yes. Well, I put another one to you. What precisely did you take Natasha Marlow to mean when she said, Peter is my only friend now?
Why, at the time that with her boyfriend gone, she had only Peter Best to turn to. As I've explained...
At the time, yes, but now, Sister Forbush. You think something different now, don't you?
Sister Forbush, if you do know something of relevance to this case, I'm afraid I must insist that you tell us. The witness promises to tell the whole truth, you know, not just to answer questions.
It's something that only came up a day or two ago, in fact, at the clinic. I was hopeful it wouldn't arise. From a completely independent source, we've learned that Peter Best in her lifetime was a drug handler, a pusher. She supplied many addicts and habitués. Among them, we have reason to believe, Natasha Marlow.
Well, Mr. Lotterby?
Thank you, my lord. It was necessary for me to confer with my client. As you will understand, this new evidence came as something of a surprise to me.
Now, it's your belief, is it, Sister Forbush, that when Miss Marlow said, Peter is my only friend, she meant that Peter was the source of the drugs which would enable her to escape from her unhappiness?
That is what I believe now.
Did you inform the police that Peter Best was a pusher?
No, I didn't. I've never told anyone until today.
Well, how, pray, did you become aware that Peter Best had been a drug pusher?
Well, our clinic isn't exactly a detective organisation, but sometimes an addict will tell us something about his sources, and then we can help the police. In this case, a young man came in with a list of his suppliers over the last 5 years. It tied in with other scraps of information we had, other statements from patients. But inasmuch as Peter Best was dead,
Yes, thank you, Sister. Mr. Fry?
Now, I've no further questions of this witness, my lord.
I have no re-examination, my lord.
You may stand down, Sister Forbush.
With your permission, my lord, I should like to recall to the witness box the defendant, Natasha Marlow.
Mr. Lotterby? I must remind you that you're still under oath, Miss Marlow.
Miss Marlow, is it true that Peter Best was in fact supplying you with drugs? Miss Marlow?
You don't understand, it wasn't like
Please,
that. It was...
yes or no?
Yes, it's true.
With your complete supply? The mixed pill, even that? I see. Miss Marlow, why have you kept this intelligence to yourself?
I don't know. I suppose I thought that...
Yes, Miss Marlow?
Well, it'd be better if I said nothing, since nobody else knew, I mean. Might even go against me if I spoke.
Was this then how you came to be in debt to Miss Best? Not through borrowing money, but through receiving drugs?
Yes.
Miss Marlow, I've already asked you this question once before in this trial, but clearly I'll have to ask it you again. Did you hate Peter Best for the hold she had over you?
No. It just wasn't like that. I like acid. I had good trips. Then there was Bill. Bill wanted me to get off drugs. So I tried. I really tried. Only he went away. Then there was just acid again. Why should I hate Peter Best? She helped me. I meant it. I really meant what I said to Sister at the clinic that time. Peter Best's my only friend now. Who else?
Thank you, Miss Marlow. That's all.
Now, Miss Marlow, so we learn at length that Peter Best was supplying you with drugs.
Yes.
And numerous other people as well, presumably.
I suppose so.
Did she take drugs herself?
No, not as a rule.
No. It's most unusual for pushers to take drugs personally, isn't it? Too dangerous.
Yeah.
And yet you expect us to believe that on the night she died, she took the contents of 2 L.S.D. capsules.
Look, Peter did crack those capsules into the glass and drink it. It was queer, but she did. I know, I remember it clear as day.
You wanted to get off L.S.D. in order to keep your boyfriend, didn't you? You were attending the clinic for that reason.
Yeah.
And yet here was this woman with a vested interest in keeping you on L.S.D. Quite plainly, you couldn't succeed in breaking your habituation and keeping your boyfriend until you got rid of her. That's what you thought, isn't it?
No!
No wonder your boyfriend lost patience and broke with you. No wonder he hasn't been called to this court to give evidence today, in fact. He might have had things far too pointed to say about Peter Best and your true feelings towards her.
My lord, that is a completely unjustified comment. Had the defence seen any point in calling Mr. Archdeacon, they certainly would have done so.
Yes, Mr. Fry, please confine yourself to putting facts. I think you should withdraw that comment.
I do withdraw the comment, my lord. With apologies to my learned friend. No further questions, Miss Marlow.
That completes the case for the defence, my lord.
Very well, Miss Marlow. You will return to the dock. Mr. Fry.
May it please your lordship. Members of the jury, in considering your verdict, I would ask you to keep firmly in your minds the following 3 facts. 1. Natasha Marlow was in debt to Peter Best in that she needed drugs and Peter Best supplied them. 2. On the 7th of July, Peter Best told Alan Griffin that she would supply some pornographic photographs of screamed, "I won't do those shots, I'll kill you before I do." 3. The next morning Peter Best was dead, and Natasha Marlow was in the studio with her. So the most important question you have to ask yourself is, was Natasha Marlow on a trip the night Peter Best died, a trip that would have rendered her harmless, or was she still, because the drugs and things she'd taken at the party were wearing off, capable of murder? Now, Miss Marlow claims that at the studio she clearly remembers Peter Best taking LSD, rolling on the floor, bruising herself, dragging a sheet. Isn't it odd that she should remember just enough to suggest that Peter Best killed herself and no more? And there are 2 things here that puzzle me, members of the jury. One of them is this sheet that Peter Best is supposed to have swallowed. Now, do you think that anybody could push a sheet 8 inches down their own throat and continue doing this until death occurred? I don't. And the forensic expert, Dr. Stanislaus, said that such an eventuality was quite outside the bounds of possibility. Is it not much more likely that somebody else pushed this sheet down her throat, somebody who wished to harm her? And who else was there but Natasha Marlow? Now, the other thing that worries me is this length of rubber hosing over here, Exhibit 1, which my learned friend has so studiously ignored. Dr. Stanislaus said that the injuries to Miss Best were consistent with her having been beaten about the head and body by this hideous weapon, which you will remember contained fragments of hair from the dead woman's scalp and a single set of fingerprints, those of Natasha Marlow. Does not this suggest to you that Natasha Marlow, in a frenzy of destruction, attacked the woman who held her in subjection, and having failed to silence her with blows from the hosepipe, suffocated her while she lay on the floor? Natasha Marlow had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to kill the woman who was alone with her in the studio that night. And on the evidence you've heard, members of the jury, I submit you are bound to find her guilty.
Mr. Lotterby.
My lord. Members of the jury. For most of us, it is difficult to imagine the terrors of a bad trip on LSD, what has been described by Dr. Stanislaus as a journey into hell. But of one thing we can be certain, it would be our own psyche we'd be exploring, our own individual, personal hell. Now, this is the point I want to make. It is not possible for a person under the influence of LSD to do something that they hadn't already wanted to do. And I put it to you that there is no evidence to show that Miss Marlow wanted to kill Peter Best. In fact, all the evidence shows that she was her only friend and her only source of supply for LSD. But there is evidence to show that Peter Best wanted to kill herself. And indeed, on one occasion, she slashed her wrists. Now, I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that someone who can deliberately, with full awareness, cut her own wrists so that the blood flows, such a person is fully capable of choking herself to death when her mind and senses are out of control because of a massive dose of L.S.D. Doesn't it seem a strange method of murder to stuff a sheet down someone's throat? But does it require much imagination to picture someone on a bad trip trying to eat it, to cram it into her mouth? I contend that Miss Best, in such a state, was capable of any such self-injury. However, it is not for me to prove that Peta Best killed herself. Rather, it is for my learned friend to prove that Miss Marlow killed her, and this, I contend, he singularly has failed to do. I want you to remember the words of Dr. Stanislaus. There is no recorded case of a normal LSD subject laying violent or murderous hands on a fellow human being. But, as the doctor also said, there have been a number of cases of suicides. Members of the jury, you have no alternative but to find Natasha Marlow not guilty.
Now, members of the jury, the issue before you is quite clear. You must decide whether or not Natasha Marlow caused Peta Best's death. Now, if she did not, then plainly she is innocent and she must be acquitted. If she did, and if the prosecution proved beyond all reasonable doubt that she did, then she may be guilty of either murder or manslaughter. Now, she will be guilty of murder if you decide that, in spite of the drugs she took, she was still capable of forming an intent to kill. She will be guilty of manslaughter if she killed Miss Best whilst she, Miss Marlow, was so under the influence of drugs that one cannot say of her that she could form any intent to kill. But she will be guilty of no offence at all if you think that she was so drugged that her acts were involuntary, like those of a sleepwalker. You will now retire and consider your verdict.
All stand. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the prisoner Natasha Marlow guilty or not guilty of the murder of Peta Best?
Not guilty.
Do you find the prisoner Natasha Marlow guilty or not guilty of the manslaughter of Peta Best?
Not guilty.